everyone, it's Caitlin and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you 3 different recipes using white beans. Beans are definitely a staple in my diet. They're budget friendly, a great source of fiber, plant-based protein, and they're pretty versatile too. And beans is just honestly like a vague statement. There are so many types of beans. So if you're bored of eating beans, my first advice would be to switch up the varieties of beans that you're using. So you can use black beans, pinto beans, white beans. There are tons of white beans. Lentils, red lentils. We usually go through some sort of variation of those in our house to sort of switch things up and keep things interesting. But anyways, today we're focusing on white beans and I'm going to show you 3 different recipes that are fresh and tasty. So I feel like oftentimes with beans, we assume that they're more hardy. Maybe we eat them with more like wintry or cold weather foods, but these recipes are perfect for year-round enjoyment. They're full of fresh and tasty ingredients, but they'll still leave you feeling full and satisfied. So without further ado, let's get on to the recipes. First up, we're going to be making a white bean jackfruit chili. This chili is a little bit more veggie-packed and more Tex-Mex inspired than a traditional tomato-based chili. So to start out, you're going to add some oil or vegetable broth to a pot, and we're going to add some finely diced white onion, some corn. You can use fresh corn, but I'm actually using frozen corn here. I don't find it makes too much of a difference in the final product. We're also adding some diced jalapenos. If you want things spicier, you can keep some of the seeds in like I did. And now we're actually just going to cook these veggies down and sear them in the pan. So as you can see, the water is slowly starting to evaporate from the pan. The vegetables are looking more and more translucent. And here, there's some brown bits forming on the bottom of the pan. This is good. This is actually what we want to get that nice seared flavor. So we're going to keep cooking this mixture down until there's no more liquid in the pan, and then we're going to deglaze it with liquid. And as you can see here, now I'm scraping all those brown bits, which are essentially flavor, off the bottom of the pan, and they're getting absorbed into our vegetables. This adds nice depth of flavor to the chili and really takes it to the next level. So now we're going to go in with some minced garlic and some finely chopped cilantro stems, which have just as much flavor as the leaves, and a few spices. The full spices are listed in the blog post, which is linked below. We're just going to stir this into our other veggie mixture until everything is nice and evenly coated. Then we're going to add in some white beans. I'm using navy beans for this recipe, but any white bean will really work. And then we're going to add in some jackfruit. You want to use canned, unripe jackfruit. This is very neutral in flavor. I have more details in the blog post again on how to properly shred it, and if you don't like that canned taste, how to get the canned taste out of there. Then we're going to add in some vegetable broth. I'm using vegan chicken flavored broth because the jackfruit is meant to imitate shredded chicken in this recipe. So that's why I did that, but vegetable broth will work well too. So we're going to cover this mixture, bring it to a boil, and then uncover and let it simmer away until some of the liquid evaporates and all the flavors mingle and combine. You might want to stir occasionally just to make sure nothing starts to splatter or anything. As you can see, the longer you cook the chili, some of the starch from the beans begins to break down too, and the liquid in it becomes a little bit more opaque and creamy, which results in a much more satisfying and thick chili. So once the mixture has thickened to your liking, you are good to go, and you can serve and or top as desired. I like to top mine with some fresh jalapenos for a little bit of a kick, some vegan coconut yogurt or sour cream, and if you want to go over the top and extra delicious, you can add some vegan cheese shreds and some fresh cilantro leaves as well. This chili is great on its own. I also like to eat it dunked in tortilla chips. All in all, a very good meal. Next up, we're going to be making a spinach and artichoke white bean casserole. This is a dump and bake casserole, which I love to do on my channel. You guys should know. So we're going to start out by warming up some liquids. We're going to add some full fat coconut milk to a pot along with just a splash of vegetable broth, plus the juice of a freshly squeezed lemon and some nutritional yeast and a little bit of salt. And then we're going to whisk this all together and bring it to a boil over the stove. The coconut milk really helps this recipe to be nice and creamy, and the nutritional yeast combined with that sort of mimics the cheesy factor in traditional spinach and artichoke dip. So then in our casserole dish, we're going to add some cooked beans. I'm using cannellini beans this time. You just want to shake them out, make sure they're sort of evenly spaced along the bottom of the pan. We're also going to add in some diced shallot, some garlic, a can of chopped artichokes, and some frozen spinach that has been pressed and drained really, really well. We don't want a lot of extra moisture in the spinach. Then you're just going to mix everything together, mostly to break up the spinach and distribute the onion and garlic. We don't want any huge clumps of that anywhere. And then we're going to sprinkle some uncooked dry white rice on top of the casserole. We like to add the rice on top, but you still want to mix it in just a little bit with a spatula so you don't get any dry patches of rice after we pour our boiling liquid on the top. All in all, everything is still going to cook well, but this just helps the casserole to be more evenly distributed and look a little better once it comes out of the oven. So once our liquid comes to a boil, we're going to pour it over our casserole, and I'm trying to pour it again evenly here so everything gets cooked nice and well. Just use your spatula maybe to press some uncooked rice back in. Make sure, again, everything is moisture. I've said that like 5 times already, but you know, you guys get the point. And then we're going to cover this and bake it in the oven. I like to add a layer of parchment paper in between the aluminum foil, but it is not essential, so you can skip it if you want to. And we're going to bake this at an oven preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit for around 45 minutes. And then once it comes out, just carefully remove the cover. I let mine sit for a bit so it would be cooler, but this is what it looks like. The rice is perfectly cooked and the spinach and artichoke flavor is very prominent and present, which is what we want, but it's still nice and hearty and satisfying. Essentially, my inspiration with this dish was to create a spinach and artichoke dip that I could eat for a meal. And I'm pretty sure I hit the nail on the head with this one. I topped it with some vegan parm and just dug in. This casserole is packed with flavor and it's full of pantry staple ingredients, making it a great anytime recipe. Last but not least, we're going to be making an herby white bean dip. This is sort of a hummus inspired dip, but we're going to be using white beans and infusing a lot of fresh spring herbs into it as well. So we're actually going to start out with the herbs. For this recipe, I'm using some parsley, some fresh mint, and some chives, but you could use some other fresh herbs that you have in your garden or anything else you need to use up. We're going to blend these first with some fresh lemon juice and our garlic cloves, just because we want these to be as finely processed as possible. I'm also adding in a little bit of salt there, but basically you're just going to process everything until the herbs are chopped pretty well. They're going to blend up further once we add in the beans and our other ingredients, and you will need to scrape the sides of the food processor just a little because some of the herb stems might get stuck to the sides. But this is the texture we're looking for once everything is done. So now we're going to move on to our traditional sort of hummus method to make a creamy bean dip. We're going to start by adding just the plain white beans into the food processor with the herb mixture and process this as much as you can until you get a nice smooth paste. It's not going to be completely smooth again. We're going to fix that later, but this just helps to break down the beans and get them broken down so when we add in our other ingredients later, the dip will be more smooth and creamy. So now at this point we have a nice and thick bean herby puree. We're going to add our tahini. The tahini that you use does matter. I like to use SESAME tahini. I have it linked in the blog post. Would definitely recommend using a high quality runny tahini. So you're going to add this to your food processor, start to run, and then we're going to drizzle in ice cold water while this is running. And then once we add in our water, I'm using about a cup for a smoother dip. If you want it to be a little bit on the thicker side, you could use half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. But the most important part is that we're going to run this for 5 minutes straight. The cold water helps to emulsify the tahini and really make a creamy and smooth mixture. This is the trick to getting a smooth and creamy hummus or white bean dip. As you can see, this is what it looks like after 5 minutes of running. You still get a little bit of texture from the herbs, but the beans have completely broken down and blended with the tahini, which is what we are looking for. So you can serve this dip however you want. I just did an example here with some crudités, aka fancy speak for fresh veggies, but this is great on sandwiches, in grain bowls, on dips. The fresh mint adds a nice pop, and it's just really great all around spread. All right, guys, there you have it. Leave a comment below and let me know which one of these recipes was your favorite. And as always, all the recipes are linked below. They're links to my blog page, but I also have Pinterest images there if you want to pin the recipe and save it for later. And in general, you can always swap the white beans in this recipe. You don't necessarily have to use white beans. I have a list of all acceptable substitutions for all of these recipes in my blog post. I always try to keep you guys covered and explain why we use certain ingredients in certain situations and when it's acceptable to switch based on what you have in your pantry. I think that's it for this video though, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this inspires you to eat more beans and make them tasty, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you continue to have a great day. All that good stuff. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.